Hey there, I'm going to talk to you about levels. It's 88 degrees in the shop, so I've got a cold Stroh's here. I'm going to try to give you the last word on levels, which is impossible. I always try to give you the last word on something that can't be done, but I try to be thorough, tell you everything that I can think off the top of my head, and then there's probably a lot more that could be said. Levels. I'm going to teach you how to buy a level. Now, I've done probably over 70 videos now and haven't even mentioned the tool. And there's a reason for that. It's not conscious, it's more subconscious, but there is a reason why I haven't brought it up. When you go to the store and you buy a level, you would think high quality, high dollar level. You're going to pick it up, look at it, it should be safe to grab it and go. 10 of them on the rack, they ought to all read the same. Unfortunately, they won't. I've done this many times. You go in the store and they're not the same. So what are you looking to do? Well, first of all, you need to know what you're after. Are you after the cheapest thing you can get? Do one job and it's a throwaway? I'll tell you how to get that level. Spend $7 instead of 70. I don't think you'll ever be sorry you bought a good tool. Doesn't mean you have to buy the highest dollar tool, the most expensive tool. We generally know that you tend to get what you pay for, but it doesn't always mean you buy the most expensive thing. In fact, I'm ranting all the time about I didn't get what I paid for, or what I expected, or what was promised. But I don't think you'll ever regret buying good quality, high quality tools. But you don't always have to have that. So you decide what you're going in there for. Now, in my lifetime, I've had a lot of levels. But in my lifetime, a 2-footer and a 4-footer have always been sufficient. And I looked at what the old guys had. You know, these guys that taught me things and I respected them. However nice or grouchy they were, I did respect them. And I'm still trying to top their work. And that's all they ever had. It was a 48-inch level and a 2-foot level. And I know if you're a door guy, you might right away say, wait a minute, you need a 6'6" level or a jam level or something like that. And I understand that. In my career, I know I've hung close to 3,000 doors. Literally. Nearer 3 than 2, but between 2 and 3,000 commercial doors. Big honking doors, 8-foot doors, hospital doors. I've worked in hospital jobs where I hung 1,500 doors on one job. Me and a couple other guys. And then all the other jobs, you know, might have 50, 80, 100 doors in it. I've hung everything you can hang off of a door. Any kind of hardware, panic bar, anything. Just about that a carpenter would run into. Even some electronic stuff, although that's usually different guys. And a 2-footer and 4-footer have always been sufficient. They used to make a 6'6" rule or 6'8" level, had little flip down devices and it touched in 2 points. It was a jam level, specifically for jams. And you know, if you're a door guy and you can afford a longer level, you can carry it, you got the space, you can store it, whatever, then yeah, go there. I get that. But I'm just saying, a 2-footer and 4-footer have never let me down. When I walk up to a door, first thing I do is check the floor. And if it's out of level, I know I'm going to deal with that by shimming it or something, because when the head of a door is out of level, you got to fix that right away. It has to be fixed. So one of the reasons I carry a 30-inch is I like it just as a head checker. Right away, I'll be checking. Even before I ever walk away from the door, I'm all done. One more time, I check the head, I look at it. And I like a 30-inch for that, because the 3.0 door. But you don't have to have that. If you're out in 2 feet, you're out. And you better fix it. If you're good in 2 feet on a head, even on a 4-foot door, you're probably okay. But you know, a door guy, he might have some different requirements. But basically, a 2-footer and 4-footer have always done it for me. In 1988, I've thought about this statement. I'm gonna go ahead and make it. I've thought carefully. 1988, I went and bought these two levels for $150 for the set. They're called Crick levels, C-R-I-C-K. And in this country, or perhaps on planet Earth, these are the finest levels you can buy, period. I just trust these levels. To this day, I trust these levels. They're kind of go-to levels. I'll check other levels against this level. I've proven other guys' levels out of level with these levels. Starting with these levels and then go through a logical check that I'm going to show you that proves their level's not right. And they just bought it, new. So, I love Crick levels. Now, I know guys might write in a nasty comment and say, wait a minute, there's Smith levels and Stabila and there's other, and it's like, yeah, there's other good levels. I'm just saying, I know these levels. I know they're great. When you go into the store and you grab a level, I was saying first thing that they ought to all be the same, right? Well, they're not. What you want to do is you want to grab the level and put it against something solid, like the rack, the steel rack. Some way you can hold it steady. What you're looking for, the upper and lower vial in this plumb position, those vials, they want to look identical. They want to look the same. Whether it's plumb or not, it doesn't matter. It's whatever they bubbles say, need to say identically the same thing. Hopefully the rack's plumb, you go up to it and you're reading a plumb number and you're putting this on there and both vials show dead plumb, perfectly centered between the lines. That's what you're after. If it's out, they're out identically the amount, the best your eye can see. That's what you want. You don't want one big bubble and one little bubble. You want them to look identical. If they don't, you got to chuck that one aside. It's no good to you. But if they do, you're still not done. Because you've looked at this side, now you got to flip it. You say, well, they have to be the same. No, for some reason they can be different. And if they are different, you got to chuck it aside. But you're still not done. Because now you checked it this way, and you checked it the other way, now you're going to flip it this way. And they better read the same. And if they don't, you're going to chuck it aside. But you're still not done. Because now, you looked at both directions this way, you looked at one direction this way, you got to flip it this way, and check it again. And that's all you can do in the store. A four-way check, and you're looking to see, do these suckers agree with each other? And if they don't, the level's no good to you. Now, you're buying a lesser level. Let's say you're not buying the most expensive level. Well, do this on the most expensive, best level you can find in the store, and then take your cheaper one that you're buying and compare it. And go through that test with it. But if it doesn't agree with the better one, you got a problem. If they agree, now you got some confidence that at least the cheaper one's starting out right. The difference in cost levels, a lot, to be honest, you can have a cheap one start out. I don't have one here, but if you had a cheap one, it could start out perfect. It just may not stay that way. The better level, the better product's probably going to stay more accurate longer, with more abuse, more wear and tear. So that's what you're getting for that price. Because you could have an accurate, cheap level. Another thing, wood levels versus aluminum levels. Well, traditionally, there never was anything but wood, and usually they were short. There are logical reasons to want a wood level. Masons, I think they would tell you that in the hot sun, this is more comfortable to pick up and use. It's a surprise to me that this is hot to pick up and can be hotter to grab in the hot sun than this can. I've seen that myself personally. And if I lay block or some kind of masonry, I grab these. Even though these are perfectly adequate for level and plumb. You will see some masons maybe use an aluminum level, but to this day, that tradition of a wooden level tends to persist. It could be a union tradition, I don't know. But there are logical reasons, because in the hot sun, this isn't as hot to pick up usually. In bitter cold winter, the metal, your hand can freeze and stick. That's not a problem for a mason, because he's not supposed to be laying masonry in cold weather. He's supposed to be laying in well above freezing temperatures, 40 and above. So that's not an issue for him. But the carpenter might say, well, I want the wood level too, because in cold weather, my hand doesn't stick to this. It's more comfortable to pick up. So there's a logical thing there. But the modern box beam levels, they've proven themselves. There's good I-beam levels too, but the box beam level has proven itself as a good invention. There's one major difference between wooden levels and some other levels. Used to see aluminum levels that were not box beam levels, and then the box beam levels today, the prevailing thing is you'll see these encased acrylic vials, and you'll see one vial here and here and here. Wooden levels to this day pretty much have pairs of vials. So logically you would say, well, there's more margin of error. You would think that's a bad thing. But the thing is, Crick and others have shown they can get it right. They've done it. They've proven that this level can be right, beautifully right, with pairs of vials. In the store, when you pick up any level and you're looking at level, I talked about four-way check for plumb. Well, on level, you got to do a similar thing. You got to put it on a shelf or something. Whether it's level or not, you just put it on the shelf, and then whatever it reads, when you flip it over, to my feeble mind, it should read the same exact thing. Now, at least the level agrees with itself. Now, does another level agree with it? Another level that agrees with itself, does it agree with this level? And there's sort of a confidence factor that comes from consensus. Kind of like I talked about squares. You want a square square. And you want your squares to all agree. You want your levels to agree, the ones you purchase especially, but in the store, two good levels that read consistent with themselves ought to read consistent with each other. That's about all you can do in the store. I'll tell you about another check though you can do. But back to the 2 vial, 1 vial thing. Another thing about 1 vial, I think the manufacturer would tell you that the level is reliable in both positions. But there's something common sense wise that makes me think this is a broken line here. And I'm going to set this on the surface and I'm going to read it with the vial up. So the moment I go like this and want to mark this line, I'm getting possibly into a questionable practice. So I should try to get this vial wherever I need it to see it, but I should mark my line on this side. Does that make sense? If you're hanging a bulletin board and you have a height you want, you mark that height, you put this up to it, it's above you, so you need to be able to see the vial, but you're really wanting to mark up here. If you learn to do that with this level, I think you'll be more satisfied with it. Otherwise, the old style was better. 2 continuous lines, you got a vial either way. Yeah, you can either see it or you can't. You might have to bust out a ladder, but in either case, you've got 2 reliable edges. So there's something to think about. This way works though. It's durable. These take a beating. Cases are good. I'm sad to say I don't use them as much as I should. They're soft side cases, hard cases. There's a certain logic to a case because it protects the tool. This is not a tool you want to beat up. You know, I've talked about this with squares. This is a standard that you're relying on to do your work. And you're trying to work to a standard, to sound standards. This tool becomes that for the field carpenter, the field installer. He's relying on a standard. And to beat these up doesn't make sense. It's stupid. You want to respect the tool and take care of it and protect it the best you can. These kinds of tools, they're not handy tools to have. They're essential to what you're doing. They're essential to your craft. So take care of the tools, get tools that agree with each other, and you won't be sorry. There are higher standards though. Let's say you buy the level and you've read it the best you know how to read it, and you say, well, it's the best one I can walk out of the store with. You buy the level. Or you order one online. You would be hard pressed to go to Crick and buy this now, or go to any store and buy this hanging on the rack. You probably have to order it from Crick. You just don't walk into very many stores and buy this like I did. $150 for the pair in '88. That's probably $300 worth to today's dollar, and they're worth it. So let's say you order one, you get it, and you can't get it to read right. All you can do is send the level back. A deal where you have a level that suddenly now the two don't agree, you got two options. It's no good to nobody for nothing, not as a level. Some companies you can send it back and have them recalibrated, so that's a possibility. It might be worth it on a high dollar box beam level. Most of the time you're going to sell it in a garage sale for $1 and get rid of the thing, because it's no good to nobody for nothing, not as a level. It might be, you tell the guy, hey, I'll be straight up with it, I don't trust it as a level anymore, it might work for you, or you know, it's still good as a straight edge or whatever, but it's no good as a level once the two don't agree. I just got rid of 2 levels because I didn't like the way they didn't agree. There are other standards though. You order a level, comes in the mail, you get it, you like it, everything reads good, looks good to the naked eye, and you wonder if it's still level. Well, you might have a friend with a laser or something, really good laser, you can shoot it, make a line, check it. That might be an option, although there's problems with lasers, and I could talk all day about lasers and transits. You know, I've taken my transit and shot the wall 10 feet apart, chalk a tight, crazy tight chalk line, put the thing up there. You know, does my level agree with that line? Because supposedly now I've used the higher standard. I've taken my transit and shot 2 points, you know, 10 feet apart, 8 feet apart, chalked a ridiculous hard, tight chalk line. Now this better agree with it. Or take a straight edge. When I bought these crick levels, I had water level. I took the water level and I did a 6-foot line. I had a straight edge, put it up, made a fine pencil line between the 2 marks, and checked my levels. And I was satisfied that these read as good as they could read. There's other questions that come into play though. Was my straight edge straight? Were my eyes good? Water level, you have the meniscus, which is, you know, water will curl up a tube, and there's that visual error. I think they call it the meniscus. So you got other things that come into play, but you know, you do the best you can for accuracy. Some of these levels, they're printing the accuracy that the manufacturer says you can rely on it at least to this length for a certain range of accuracy. This one says guaranteed accurate to 0.00050 inches. So what is that number? 0.005 is 5/10,000ths of an inch over its length. If it would be that, that would just be phenomenal, and they're saying it is, so I don't know. There's another thing I was going to mention was why I haven't talked about levels. A level is an installer's tool. It's not a fabricator's tool. We talk in the shop of fabricating an assembly of some kind. Methods, work, handwork, machine work, you assemble something. This bench is not level. I assemble on it all the time. Whatever I'm making has to be square and parallel and accurate with itself. Let's say I'm making a box. That box, it doesn't matter if the whole box is out of level here. As long as it's square, you know, we're talking about parallelism and pulling accurate diagonals and square components, or hitting the angles that are intended there. We're not talking about level. Level is something floating in space. You want it level. Level with the gravitation of the earth, gravitational pull of the earth. I see so many goof ups on YouTube, it's hilarious. There was one I was compelled to leave a comment on it. There's a person, and she has like 1 million billion subscribers, you know, 600,000, and she was making a bed in like 6 minutes. And she's got these 2 members here, and she's going along putting members into it, and there's so much down, these slats hang so much down or something, and she marked one and then leveled over, and marked the other and leveled over, and I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, unless your floor is dead accurate, and you set this member down and you're butting into it, a certain level below the top of it, such your floor was dead accurate and this was dead straight, that level means nothing in there. You need to measure down and be parallel through here. Level is for floating in space, not for an assembly. It's for an assembly that's floating in space. You want to install the thing. If I'm making a cupboard, the level has no role. It has no play in this thing. The moment I take that cupboard and install it, now I put on a carpenter's hat and I'm an installer, now I bust out the level and hang the thing correct. Big difference. Big, big difference between assembly and plumb. You buy a little 90 square foot, 80 square, 8 by 10, 8 by 12 storage barn. You go to the home center, you buy a kit, delivered to your house, you're putting it up. I've set them up before in parking lots, buildings. The parking lot's downhill. The level plays no part in that. It's a free-floating assembly. It has to be square and parallel to itself, even if the whole barn is sitting downhill a little bit with the doors open. That makes sense? I see this on YouTube all the time. People using a level, and they don't need a level. They need a straight edge, or they need to be parallel or square. You know, so you want to think about how you're using a level, and whether you need a level, and it needs to be level or not, is a big issue. And people talk about leveling this and leveling that, and they really don't know what they're talking about, because there's a specific use for the word level. We level something. But it's usually a relationship of components in space being level. There's other goof-ups I see, and back to the issue of standards. I think we need to rediscover a plumb bob. You know, when a 4-foot level is inadequate, if you say, well, that's not enough, I need longer, you need to ask yourself, why isn't that enough? Do I really need a plumb bob? Am I plumbing something 10 feet tall and I should bust out a plumb bob? You know, I admit there's times in framing, maybe you're building a deck and you need a little more reach, and maybe a 6-foot level would really, really help you there. I get that, but I'm saying in general, you need to think about what are we doing here that this is inadequate. And we need to rediscover the plumb bob. And I have taken a plumb bob against a wall and crafted a very well, highly crafted plumb line on that wall. Tiny, thin plumb line. And checked my level against it. Out of curiosity, was my plumb stick still plumb? And you have to think about the standards you're working to. You know, the water level I talked about. But what if you shoot something with a transit or a water level, you walk up, and you say, it's awful tempting for me to shoot something with my transit 10 feet apart, chalk a line, it's like, I still want to check it. You got to think about it. I say to myself, now, Jeff, you're taking the lower standard and trying to evaluate the higher standard, what should be the higher standard, against the lower standard. And I keep that in the back of my mind. And sometimes I let myself do that because I say, well, if it can't even meet this standard, then that brings into question what I think is the, quote, higher standard. So sometimes it's just a matter of check, check, recheck. But you have to really think about what takes precedent in the argument. This level takes precedent maybe over this level. But something else may take precedent over this. You know, I've watched guys come in and do CAT scan machine. You know, I was going to say earlier, you know, a lot of what we do is not life and death. Well, I've watched guys come in and set CAT scan machines, and they kind of look at it like it is life and death. In fact, they won't even come into the room and occupy the room until they're satisfied you've met the spec level for the floor. That you've met the specs in terms of leveling that floor when you poured that floor. Guys like me that put the floor in or whatever, they had to meet a spec for level. Did they meet that, or the guy won't even show up? Then when he gets there, he has very sophisticated ways of leveling a CAT scan machine, because to him it kind of is life and death. But a lot of what we do in carpentry and cabinet making, you know, that's not really life and death. Some of it is. You know, something collapses and falls and kills somebody, that's life and death. You know, you build something in assembly and it fails, it can be life and death. So I take it very seriously. I take standards very seriously. I take methodologies and tools very seriously, and the way you use tools and the way you install things very seriously. Because the moment I go out, I build a cupboard, the moment I go out and put it in, I want to put a different hat on. Now I'm installed. You know, no less important, just different set of priorities. So those are some thoughts on levels. If you have questions, put them in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them. There's always more to learn about these tools. but I like to be thorough, and I appreciate you watching.